Hello, hello. Don't mind my voice if it sounds a little raspy. I just woke up. So, um, yeah, just on a side note, it's been really hot where I'm at the last couple weeks here. I know it's hot everywhere, right? There's like a heating thing going on. But where I'm at, located like northern Canada area, we're not used to extreme heat, right? And this last week or two has actually been the hottest it's been all year. So it started at the end of August, so August, September, and we're hotter than we were in June and July, right? So I've kind of taken a break from the channel, well, posting anyways, because I've had to have like the fan going and the window open and all kinds of stuff to try to stay cool, right? And it doesn't really make a difference, it's still so hot. So I've taken a break for the last week or so to manage that. So anyways, I just wanted to mention that, right? So with that said, I'm here with a message. So the Lord was talking to me this morning about cold-hearted. That's what he was saying, was about cold-hearted. And I've made messages about this in the past, but obviously I talk all the time on here too about how these adversaries that are run by the devil, they don't have any new tricks, right? I talk a lot about that in past words where it seems like with God's kids, we're constantly elevating and learning, unlocking new gifts and receiving new gifts and learning new things about our gifts. And like our knowledge and awareness is very vast, right? There's a lot. But it seems like with the devil's kids that they're stunted, that they only get so much. Like how the Lord always shows it to me is like a hand of cards, right? And so he's always shown it to me like, whenever he shows me like the devil and his minions, how they move in ways like games. That's how like games where they want to like play, make your life like a checker game. And then once you are like, okay, and you have to play the checkers to win the game, right? Then they try to like go toe to toe with you like a chess. And so the Lord shows it to me like they're trying to be strategic and they're trying to really like play it out, slow play, slow burn, you know what I mean? Or like then sometimes he shows it to me like gambling, like sometimes like casinos or poker or roulette, you know, things like that, where it's like literally gambling, or even like a lottery ticket. You know that you spend money on a lottery ticket and most chance you're not going to win, right? It's like you're taking a big risk and you know it by buying it and knowing you're gonna lose, right? Like say you buy a $5 scratch and win, you're pretty sure that you're not gonna win. You're gonna be out your $5. Yeah, there's a slim chance you might win, but even if you do win, it's a free ticket or like $2, you know. And so no matter how you cut it, you're like out because you paid $5 and you either got nothing back, you lost your $5 completely, or you won a free play or $1 or something. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's like with the enemies, is that they they play like games. And the Lord has also shown it to me before too, that it's like cards where the Lord is the dealer and he deals the chosen ones a hand and he deals the devil's kids a hand. And no matter how tough, sometimes it's even set up that God's kids get a really like bad hand. Like they get dealt a bad hand. And no matter how bad that hand is, they still somehow play the cards well and strategically enough to win with that bad hand. And so sometimes the Lord will actually, as the dealer, so to speak, give the Satan's kids a better hand than you, child of God. Okay? He will. And that's the thing, because the Lord does on purpose to show the devil and his minions that even when the game is rigged, like when it's in your favor, like you have 5 game pieces, chosen one, and the devil's kids have 10, they still can't beat you. You know what I'm saying? And so even when sometimes it's rigged in their favor, they still lose. Even when they double down on, put all on red or all on black, they put the whole lot on and they double down, they still lose. And then even when they try to be strategic and do a slow burn, they still lose. No matter what the game is at hand or the way that you play, you always find a way. Like they may have a temporary victory only because the odds were stacked in their favor. And then they think they have an upper leg on you because you have a bad, you're in a bad position, right? On the chessboard or on the checkerboard or with your hand of cards. But somehow, because through the grace of God, you're always able to play your position to a victorious outcome, even if it takes you longer than it took them, right? And so this upsets them. And so anyway, so that's how the Lord always shows it to me, okay? So with that said, these adversaries have a very limited scope and ability as to what they do, okay? Whether the odds are in their favor or not, it's irrelevant. They could have the best hand, they'll still come out short in the end. They could have the worst hand and they won't know how to strategically maneuver that hand to put themselves in an advantageous spot, right? These are things that the children of God get. So this is what I mean, is like the Lord shows me that the children of God have so much more opportunities and chances and openings and freedom and room to move and maneuver, right? And whereas with the devil and his kids, it's very limited. And I've always said that. So it's very like just stunted, it's limited, it's very cut and dry, okay? And so with that said, they have no choice, but because the opportunities and the availabilities aren't available at their disposal like it is for you, child of God, they have no choice but to play these same little moves over and over again, use these same type of tactics, these same type of things, right? And so you'll notice that as the children of God elevate and graduate and move up and level up, right, and continue to receive a new door, like it's almost like there's a door in front of the children of God and that door opens up to something new, okay? But with the children of the devil, they get a door as well, but the door always just leads them right back to the start again. They always end up right back where they started. And so this leaves them no other choice but to, side note, the Lord is saying that the devil and his kids have to, like, the fact that I said already that the Lord gives them a more favorable position sometimes, they have to have that just to be able to go tit for tat with you, because of the fact that it is set up in your favor where you get these new doors and new openings to you. They don't have that. You know it, they know it. So the only way that they can even catch up to you or stand back to back to you is if the Lord is gracious and gives them like the upper hand, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to explain it. It'd be like, say there's a genius playing a game of cards, whatever game it is, just a game of cards. And there's, okay, we'll say poker. Say there's a genius playing poker and there's someone not so bright playing poker. Even when the dealer deliberately gives the person that's not so bright the best hand and gives the genius the bad hand, because the genius is a genius, they can still, even though it may be a bit more of a struggle because the opponent has the best hand and they have the worst hand, because of the background fact that they're a genius, they can maneuver their way through those cards, right? And even if it takes a little longer to get to the victory position, they will get there. And the only way that the opponent got where they got was because the genius had the bad hand and the opponent had the good hand. You know what I'm trying to say? That's kind of how the Lord is showing it to me, is like the only way that these adversaries can stay anywhere in your orbit is if the Lord is gracious to like give them the upper hand one way or another, I hope that makes sense. But anyways, so with that said, here we are again, and they're playing the same tricks and tactics over and over again, okay? So this is why the Lord is saying there's nothing new under the sun. Hallelujah. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And so this is why, if you've tuned to my channel for a while, you would know that I've talked about this in the past, and the Lord is saying redundant. Yes, Lord, hallelujah. It's redundant. What these adversaries do is redundant. It's always the same thing played out in a different season, on a different day, in a different way, but it's literally the same thing, right? Because they're stunted. They only have a limited amount of abilities and moves and tactics that they can actually do, okay? And then they also, on top of that, have to rely on the Lord's grace and favor for them to even get anywhere near you in the first place. Because without that, they couldn't touch it. They couldn't come near you, right? Because you're always elevated and way up there. But anyways, so with that said, they are doing the same things over and over again here in September 2025 that they did in September 2024, September 2023, etc., etc. And one of those is they are trying to make you cold-hearted, okay? Whether it have been because they've tuned in to prophetic messages like mine or prophetic messages from other prophets, or who, where, what, when, why, right? They have discovered that, or maybe the Lord's even enlightened them, because we talked just a moment ago about how the Lord will give them an upper hand, right? So maybe the Lord himself enlightened them. But either way, it's finally dawned on them, and I mean it has before, but they have a limited scope of understanding. They can't see the big picture. They can only see pieces of it, right? But it has dawned on them that one of the ways that you stay 10 steps ahead and you stay 10 toes down is because of the fact that you're not cold-hearted. And I personally have made so many messages about this. I'm sure other true children of God have as well, where the Lord measures the heart, right? The Lord studies and measures the heart. Now, one of the things, this is what the Lord was showing me with this message, okay? One of the things that these adversaries don't understand is that God tests the heart. So what I mean is that what they're trying to do is they're trying to make you try to change your heart so that you can come off as cold-hearted towards other people. And basically, we'll talk. The Lord was showing me Saul and David, okay? So I've talked about that analogy before because the Lord has shown it to me in that context in the past, is that Saul and David were both chosen men of God at one point in time, right? They both were in God's good books. They both were kings. Both had prestige and valor and things like that, okay? But we know from reading the story of Saul and David that Saul had, whether he started out with a good heart or not was irrelevant. Towards the end of things, Saul's life, he was cold-hearted, right? And he became cold-hearted throughout the stories with Saul and David because Saul started to pursue David and was trying to kill him and things like this, right? But then we also know that David was the opposite. David had the soft heart because he had the opportunity and chances to attack Saul the way that Saul was attacking him, but he didn't do that, right? He chose the higher road. And the Lord is saying that's a perfect example of the first part of my message where I talked about the way that these adversaries play these little games and the way that the children of God play them in return, okay? Saul played like an adversary and played like a child of the devil, right? David played against Saul in that proverbial game in the way that a child of God would. And so the Bible talks about this, and I've made messages on this in the past, is that a circumcised heart versus an uncircumcised heart, right? Even David had a circumcised heart when it came to Goliath. Goliath had an uncircumcised heart. And so in the story of David and Goliath had the upper hand, right? He was a big man. He had a big fight, well, giant. He had a fighting record. David didn't. David was a small, young, wet behind the ears boy, right? All the odds seem stacked in Goliath's favor. And God, obviously, in that situation, did give, and it appeared like he gave Goliath the upper hand, right? And that if they were drawing straws, that David drew the short straw, right? But proving that what it came down to was not only David's faith in God, as we know, because he said, you come to me as sword and javelin and spear, but I come to you in the name of our Father God, right? It wasn't just that, but it was the fact that, part and parcel to that was that David had a clean, circumcised heart, and Goliath did not. So two things help, and they're one and the same, right? But two things helped David win the battle that day against Goliath, was that David was a man of God, yes, but and had the favor of God on him, but it was also because he had a clean, circumcised heart. And you're not going to be a true child of God and not have a circumcised, clean heart. So if God was to tell me that this person has a bad heart, and I don't mean physically, I mean spiritually. If God was to tell me this person has a bad heart, I would know that they're not close to God. God wouldn't need to tell, and vice versa. If God says this person is not close to me, I would know that they have a bad heart. Because it's one and the same. And vice versa. If God tells me that this other person has a good heart, I would know that they're close to God. And if God says this person is close to me, I would know they have a good heart. Because being close to God and having a good heart go hand in hand. And having a bad heart and being far away from God go hand in hand, okay? So going back to this like little tit for tat game thing is that these adversaries are far from God, so they have a bad heart. Their heart is uncircumcised, no different than how Saul's was and how Goliath's was, okay? You are a child of God, chosen one, so therefore, like David, you are close to God, but you also have a clean, good heart and a circumcised heart. They are starting to like have this dawn on them, even though this is something that's going on forever. And so what they're trying to do, and they've done this before, this is not a new trick, is trying to turn you, whether this is through manipulation or through like curses or new age arts, like, you know, spells and things like this, like demonic ways or whatever. The point is they are trying to, the Lord is also saying setups. So there's people that are close to you, chosen one, right? That work for the devil's team. They're an adversary to you. So whether this be like friends or family members or even your own children, okay? Especially if, obviously I'm not talking about a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old. This is, right? Obviously. I'm talking about like your 16, 30, 40, 50-year-old child, okay? They can work for the adversary, whether they realize it or not. And so therefore they are far, so usually who it is those that are far away from God. So if you have friends, a lover, a family member, or even an older child, and they are far from God, chances are very good that they have an unclean, uncircumcised, bad heart, okay? And if they have an unclean, uncircumcised, bad heart, they can be an opponent, you know, an adversary to you sent from the devil. Because whether they're doing it deliberately or not, they automatically become a part of the devil's team. So because you're close to God, chosen one, you maintain a clean and circumcised good heart. And because of that, that can separate you from these people. And so you all can come from the same family. This could be your own son or daughter, right? Your friend, your lover, whatever it may be. The Lord is talking about even like couples. There can be couples where you both were unsaved and you got saved and your spouse didn't get saved. Automatically, that's a Saul-David situation. That's a David and Goliath situation. One party has a circumcised good heart and one party has an uncircumcised bad heart. Why? Is because one party is close to God and one party is not, right? That's why the Bible talks about unequally yoked. So that it can literally be just that simple, is that like you and your child could have been close in the past, you and this parent or your sibling, a family member, right, fill in the blank, could have been close in the past, but because you got close to God and they did not, you have a good, clean, circumcised heart, and they have the opposite. They have a bad, uncircumcised heart. And that is enough to cause a divide and a rift between the two of you, which it obviously most likely has, and for them to be signed up on the devil's team and you to be signed up on God's team. And boom, y'all are unequally yoked, okay? And so because of that, if you are at odds with any of the people I just described, that is probably why. Now, in the world, we like to chalk it up to little things like, oh, they think they're so great, or oh, they're not nice to me, or they don't uh, give me enough time, or treat me the way that I think they should, or like, do you know what I mean? It's this self-righteous, self-absorbed, the Lord is saying, hallelujah, self-righteous, self-absorbed way of looking at things that's coming from a self-appointed point of view, right? Like something that we personally, a viewpoint that we personally hold. It doesn't have anything to do with the heart or how God sees things. It's to do with how we see things, right? So because of that type of thing, this is what they're doing to the chosen ones at this time. This is the recent tactic, is what the main theme of their little mission has been lately, that the Lord has led me to know, is they have been trying to uproot the chosen ones from their position. God has elevated and promoted his chosen ones. I've talked about it a bit on my channel as well. And how I talked earlier about the opening of the doors, right? So because I mentioned earlier how you're able to elevate and grow, and there's no ceiling for you, there's like a whole bunch of vastness and room, right, to explore and experience. They don't have that. So you have this massive scope, this massive lens, and they have like a little tiny corner of that, a little tiny piece. And a lot of what causes an uncircumcised bad heart is jealousy, okay? That's one of the biggest things. And so yes, you can have your child be jealous of you. You can have your family member, your lover, be jealous of you. And you would wonder why, because when you look at things from, so there's two lenses. There's the worldly lens and then the spiritual lens, right? And you're able to kind of maneuver between both lenses, chosen one, right? Because you have that duality. You have the worldly experience, but also the supernatural divine experience with the Lord. These people don't have the supernatural divine experience with the Lord. All they have is one lens. You have two, they have one, and that's the worldly lens. So they try to view everything about themselves and about you from this worldly perspective. But they can't sum you up. You're so much more bigger than that. And the reason why is because you have this secondary lens that allows you to see spiritually that they lack. Okay, I talk all the time about how physical eyes versus spiritual eyes. So they don't see it that deep. They don't see it on all these other layers and levels. They just see it as one size fits all. So to them, they try to measure themselves up and you up versus this worldly perspective, which mostly comes down to the self. And even when we view things from the self, when we're not like riding for the devil, you know what I mean? But just the fact that we're so focused on our self-perceptions and how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about others and what we think, and when we compare them to ourselves, it's a very, the Lord is saying, ego-based. Hallelujah. A very ego-based, limited perspective, because you're only seeing things from your literal eyes, only just yourself, right? That is connected to the devil. Whether these people see it or not, that's what it is. It's God or the devil. There's no gray area, right? And so when you are close to God, you have a circumcised clean heart. When you have a circumcised clean heart, you are then able to receive these two lenses where you can see on both planes, the worldly plane and the spiritual plane, which allows you not only to see yourself in multifacets, but you can see other people in multifacets, right? And it gives you a deeper, higher understanding of things. And so you're not pigeonholed in this tiny little box space of just, I view myself this way, I view others this way. I'm comparing this, I'm comparing that. You know, it's very limited. You don't operate like that. You're like free flowing. The Lord is showing me right now like a dove or an eagle. You can fly, you can move, you know, you can't be trapped, so to speak. They're trapped in a cage, you're not. You once were, but you've been released and set free. And so because of all these things, you have this clean, circumcised heart. And because of all those other things, they have a bad, uncircumcised heart, okay? And so they've caught on, not into all the deepness that I've talked about in this message. That's too much for them, okay? Because it's limited, remember? You're playing with a full deck. They only get a few cards. So they got to make do with those few cards as best they can. So they have deduced that you have a clean, warm heart, and they don't, okay? So instead of them getting close to God and getting a clean, warm, good heart like yourself, they instead want to turn yours, or at least they can't, but try to turn yours cold and uncircumcised like theirs. So basically, instead of joining your side, which is what you and God want, they want you to lower yourself down and go backwards and go join their side instead. So instead of David being David and Saul being more like David, there's Saul's wanting David to be more like Saul. You understand? And so this is not new. This is something that they've done in the past too. I'm just explaining it from a deeper, higher vantage point level because of, me being a child of God and me seeing both lenses myself. But they don't see it to this degree that I'm speaking about. They just simply see it as that you have a good heart, and they believe that that is what's given you the upper hand. And they're right, it has, but not in the way that they think, right? And it's on purpose to set the example to them so that they could be more like you, okay? But they want you to be more like them. And so with all that said, what they've been trying to do is uproot your position. You've been elevated and promoted, and they're trying to just basically pull you out of it, pull you down, okay? And this is not new. They've always done this. Especially every time you elevate, they try to do this. And they try to do this in different ways, depending on what card they choose to play at that given time. But they are aware of the impasse and the divide between you and them, and how you all are unequally yoked. Now, they may not view it that way or call it that, but that's what it is. But they see it as that there's a contrast between the two of you, right? But they're trying to sum it up with all these little worldly perceptions and self-percepted things where they think that it's like, oh, they're just doing this because they think they're so good, or they think they're better than me, or, they know God and blah, blah, blah. Like, this is like their viewpoint is just very negative and stuff. So one of the ways that they're trying to uproot you and give themselves a leg up, like a leg up over you, bring you down and lift them up, so to speak, is by trying to turn your heart cold. And so you may see circumstances where they are purposely coming at you disrespectfully, okay? These family members, these children, these friends, these lovers, whoever it may apply to, and it could be more than one, right? In some cases, it's maybe just one person. In other cases, it could be limitless. There could be 5, 10, 15, 20 people, right? It's all dependent on who has these uncircumcised Saul-like hearts and mentalities towards you as the David, and how far they all are from God. But a common theme that they all share is that they can see that you have this, that you're this good person, that you're like a David, that you have a good heart, and it's a clean heart. And because of that, they, instead of them leveling up to where you are, which is what which is what God wants, and you're being used as the role model for them to do, they're instead trying to bring you and knock you down. And they think that if they can make David's heart as uncircumcised as Saul's, that then they could be on a level playing field with you, right? If your heart becomes as uncircumcised and bad as theirs, that then now we can get somewhere, right? And so there is a divide between you and them. They know it and you know it. And it's because you and God want them to get close to God, to raise up and elevate so that they can go from a cold heart to a warm heart, right? Instead, they don't want to do that. They want to remove you from God, like do it vice versa, pull you away from God like they are, and therefore make your heart cold and bad like theirs, okay? And so this is something that they're doing at this time. And so one of the main themes throughout the summer is they've been trying to pull you away from God. So whether this looks like trying to distract you from God, stop you from praying to God, stop you from talking about God, stop you from going to church, stop you from worshiping God, stop you from fasting, stop you from tithing, whatever they can do to try to uproot the works, because faith without works is dead, right? So your faith and your works are two things that keep you close to God. And so what they've been trying to do, this is not new, they've been doing it forever, but specifically this summer, is playing these little limited cards they have in different ways to try to bring you away from God. Because you're very close to God like David was, and they're very far from God like Saul was. And so instead of them being close to God like you are, David, they want to bring you away from God like they are Saul, right? And they're trying to run these different tactics on a continuous basis of trying to uproot your spiritual life and your relationship and your intimacy with the Lord. So, and I mean, this for a lot of chosen ones will be a confirmation. In some cases, maybe a revelation, but for a lot of you, a confirmation. You'll know what I'm talking about, and you'll know if this message is for you. And chances are good, if you're a child of God, that you'll, like, this will pertain to you. This is what they've been doing. And so my advice to you is these people don't understand that once you become it's no different than a marriage, okay? Say you and your spouse get married, there's works and faith that comes with a marriage, right? But even if you and your spouse are married, you're in love and you're married, you love them, they love you, you're married, and you have to travel, or they have to travel across country for, say, 3 months for business or work or education or for some sort of reason, okay? Does that automatically mean because you and that spouse aren't able to see each other as much, talk as much, have dates together as much, do little gestures for each other as much, that now all of a sudden you're headed for divorce, you don't love each other anymore? No, of course not. Because your covenant is deeper than that. The vows that you took and the covenant you established, the borders of it go far beyond the day-to-day life of things that happen in such day-to-day life, right? Well, it's the same thing with you and God, is that you and God are in a covenant together. And so these people, because they have the limited scope and lens of understanding, they don't get it. They're looking at it from a human perspective. They don't see that it's like that, where it's a bond and a vow that's been taken that goes far more deeper. It's no different than a marriage goes deeper than a first date, you know? Like, if you have the choice between going on a first date with someone and your spouse, you're going to choose your spouse because you and your spouse have an established history of a covenant together, right? Especially if you got married, you've taken vows. And that's where you are at with the Lord, child of God, is that once you and the Lord established a covenant together, like, these people are late to the party with these tactics. They should have tried these tactics out years ago before you were in full covenant with the Lord, and maybe there could have been some wiggle room, right? But it didn't go that way. These tricks didn't play out back then, and if they did, they weren't successful, to where eventually you and the Lord led up to a covenant, no different than how a couple will court and then eventually lead up to a marriage, right? And so it's like the mistress, they should have uprooted the relationship when they were dating, but now that they're married, it's going to be a little harder, right? And God is someone that actually keeps his covenant, unlike man, right? And so this is the thing, is that they're too late to the party with these tactics, is that you and the Lord have already established an intimate bond and covenant, where even if you don't pray every day, even if you skip a week or two of church, even if you go a few days without fasting or so, you know what I'm saying? God's not sitting there like, oh, you didn't pray to me today, you didn't read the Bible today, that's it for us. But this is how these people see it from the outside looking in, because they know that faith without works is dead. So they're trying to uproot your faith in the Lord and your works, okay? Because your works is what pleases the Lord. You need faith. You need your faith to please the Lord, and you need works to please the Lord, right? And so it's this reciprocal relationship with you and the Lord, where you give the Lord faith, you give the Lord works through your Bible reading, your church, your tithing, your fasting, your worship, whatnot. And then the Lord gives you favor and grace, right? And it's this continual reciprocal back and forth situation. So what they're trying to do is throw a wrench in the middle of that harmony and trying to disrupt it so that you stop giving the Lord faith, so that you stop giving the Lord works. And they're hoping and trying to bet on and bank that this is going to cause you and the Lord to separate, right? No different than how if you picture a worldly marriage, or not even marriage, but marriage, relationship, partnership, where there's this give and take between both parties. These adversaries want to come and throw, and that's the other thing, a side note, that's the other thing they're doing too, is when it comes to your relationships in the world with people you care about, like these children, these lovers, this lover, these friends, these family members, etc., the adversary is trying to disrupt the harmony there too, okay? So this is their angle at this time, and has been throughout the summer, but particularly through August and September, because you've had this level up. They're trying to throw a wrench in the harmony of you with these worldly relationships, these partnerships, relationships with other people, okay? They are also trying to throw a wrench in the harmony between you and the Lord. Because in order for your relationship to work smoothly with the Lord and to work with these worldly people, you need to have faith and works, right? You need to put work in on the relationship with the Lord and the relationship with others. And it also has to be faith-based. You have to have faith in this person. So they're trying to disrupt the faith that you have with God and with other people in other relationships, okay? But they're also trying to disrupt the works that it requires, relationships and covenants require that you put in. So that you're literally putting no faith in these people or in God, and you're not putting in any work either. So you're not trying to establish a bond. You're not, so when it comes to God, you're not praying, you're not worshiping, you're not going to church, you're not fasting. When it comes to other people in the world, children, family members, lover, etc., you're not texting, you're not calling, you're not responding, you're not communicating, you're not hugging, you're not doing a favor, you're not reaching out, you know what I mean? You're not doing any works. This is what they're trying to do at this time. And they're doing this in an effort to try to make you cold-hearted, so that what you receive from these people is lackluster, and that then you'll start to turn cold as a result. And what you give to these people in return is lackluster, so that then you turn cold, because your giving is stunted, so you turn cold. Your receiving is stunted, so you turn cold. That's what they're trying to do. And then they're trying to make it go a step further with trying to have it where what you give the Lord is stunted and what you receive from the Lord is stunted. So that you feel that on a physical level with people and on a spiritual level with the Lord, that you aren't receiving, and also that you're not in a position to give. And so they're trying to, the Lord is just showing me the recycling symbol, how it goes round and round like that, right? So what you give in comes back out, what you put in comes out, and it goes round and round. They're trying to throw a disruptor, like a wrench in that, so that this bond or reciprocal relationship or partnership you have with these family members or these children or this lover or friends is disrupted on their part to you and your part to them. Now, it's easily achieved with said people, because these people, whether they realize it or not, are the devil's kids. They're devil's minions. They're the devil's soldiers. So it's easy for them to do this, okay? And they're being sent and dispatched by the devil to do this to you, chosen one, because it's in efforts to try to turn your heart cold in time. Because if you turn your heart cold, then you become more like them versus them becoming more like you. Because we've already talked about how you have the good heart and they have the bad heart, right? They're also trying to do this at an even deeper level between you and the Lord, because they know that the Lord is the one who gives you the favor and blesses your relationships with these people, and you to have this warm, good, circumcised heart. And that as long as you have a good circumcised heart, you're going to be pleasing to the Lord. So the Lord is pleased by a good, clean heart. He's pleased by faith. He's pleased by works, right? And so they are trying to disrupt all of the above when it comes to the Lord, in hopes and efforts that this will uproot your positioning with the Lord and the Lord's position with you. So that if you don't leave the Lord, that he'll leave you. But what they don't understand is, I guess if you look at it from their point of view, it could maybe be a real winner to try to do. But I've already gotten to the backstory of it that they don't understand is, unlike man, you're in a covenant with the Lord, and the Lord takes a covenant seriously. It's no different than the Lord takes marriage more seriously than just dating, right? And that you could have more success at uprooting a dating relationship versus a marriage, because the difference between A and B is a covenant has been established. And so the Lord is in a covenant with you. So you're not going to, if the Lord doesn't give you things or come through for you, you're not going to leave the Lord, right? It takes a little more than that. And vice versa, just because you're not as faithful as maybe you could, should, would be, and you're not praying and going to church as much as you normally do, it's not going to have the Lord leave you either. They're going to have to work a little harder than that, the Lord is saying. Hallelujah. They're going to have to work a little harder. They're going to have to come up with a new scheme, because this is just not enough. It's not enough to take you out of partnership with the Lord and covenant, and for the Lord to come out of partnership and covenant with you. And it's also not enough to turn your heart cold. And so even if you're a little more lackluster with the Lord or with these people, and it's coming off from the worldly perspective that you are acting cold-hearted to people, right? Because you're not maybe being as generous as you normally are, you're not as kind and loving as you normally are, you're not as compassionate and stuff. They take this as success. They're like, oh, so you talked to the chosen one 2 weeks ago and they were loving and kind, and then we did this stuff, like these spells or whatever it is they're doing, these strategies, and then you talked to the chosen one yesterday and they weren't loving and kind. Oh, hooray, success, victory, our plot and plan is working. And the Lord is saying, no, it's not. Because if their plot and plan was working, then why has the Lord sent me as a vessel to talk about it? Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, how is the plan successful when people know about the plan? And so this is the other thing too, is that when these people are doing these things, they're still limited, even though they have the best hand and they're in the prime position on the board game, whatever you want to say. They don't have the upper hand because of the fact that you have these two lenses chosen one, and they only have one that will always give you the upper hand. And why you have the two lenses and they don't is because you have established a relationship, a covenant with the Lord that grants you the second lens. They don't have a relationship with the Lord, especially not like you do, so they don't get a second lens. And so therefore, they could have all the cards, all the best places, all the spots, all the upper hands that they want. They're never playing with the full deck like you are. They're only playing with a half a deck at best, because they only have half of what you have, because you have a relationship with the Lord. And the other thing too is, even if the Lord throws a bone at them and lets them, get a little ahead on you, he enlightens you on what they're doing. He either enlightens you himself, chosen one, or he enlightens me or another prophetic vessel, and then they come and tell you, right? And so either way, the enemy thinks they're staying 2 steps ahead of you, but in reality, you're 2 steps ahead of their 2 steps, because the Lord reveals to you what they're doing so that you can combat it. You can deroute it, right? Go a different way. Sidestep it, the Lord is saying. Hallelujah. Sidestep it. So anyways, these people are still going around in circles, whether they realize it or not. And they think that if they see you acting a little bit out of character in regards to the Lord, or in regards to other people that you care about, right? They know you care about the Lord. They know you care about your children and your family members and stuff, because they know that you have this clean, circumcised, good heart like David. And even though Saul had a bad heart and was after David, David still, with that good heart, cared about Saul. And that's why he played the harp for him and, respected him and things like this, right? And so these people know that this good heart is what gives you an upper hand advantage, okay? And they're correct, it does. You know it, they know it, God knows it. But instead of, the Lord is doing that on purpose to try to entice them to get closer to God so that they can elevate and level up too. That's why God allowed Saul to pursue David and David to just turn the other cheek and run was because God was showing Saul how it's done. This is how you're supposed to act, Saul. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to turn the other cheek and flee, okay? You're not supposed to go toe to toe. But, and that's why in the end God destroyed Saul, is because in God's mind, he gave Saul so many chances. He even let David be tortured, so to speak, and tormented by Saul on purpose to use David as the example to Saul of what to do versus what not to do, right? And Saul still didn't take the hint, and the time ran up. The time was out, and then it was time for Saul to be done in by his own hand and to be destroyed. And that's exactly what happened, and God gave David favor as a result. And so David and God got the victory because Saul's time ran up. He had so many opportunities and chances to go the other way. And instead of Saul elevating like David, he was trying to spend his whole time trying to demote David like he was. You see the difference? And that's what these adversaries are doing, is that instead of spending their time wisely trying to get closer to God and be more like you, right, as the good example, instead they want to waste time by bringing themselves down and trying to bring you down, which is not happening. And it doesn't matter whether they have a bad hand or a good hand, the best hand, the primo hand. It doesn't matter. Even if they're dealt the best hand and your hand's the worst, the Lord is with you, so he will help you play that hand in such a way that it works out for your good in the end anyway, right? And whether you have a good hand, a bad hand, play it perfectly or not, you're still going to be elevated and promoted, and because of all that, you're still going to have this clean, circumcised heart, and you're still going to be in covenant with the Lord, because the Lord is pleased by your heart, not necessarily just your faith and your works. Your faith and your works please the Lord, but he knows the only reason why you're not doing as much faith and works is because of what these people are doing. It's not your choice, right? David wasn't fleeing because it was his choice to flee. He was fleeing from Saul because that's what his clean heart led him to do. That's what the Lord wanted David to do, to show an example to Saul. You see what I'm saying? So you being more cold or less compassionate or less like your usual self to people and to God, God's already aware of that. He already knows that. The Lord's talking to me right now about how David went to the cave to get away from Saul. He went to the cave. And so do you think when David's in the cave, he's doing anything? He's not able to really do any works or offerings to the Lord in a cave. He's not able to be the best person out in society. He's in a cave, right? But God knew that David would be led to a cave. And so even if you're in a proverbial cave, chosen one, where maybe your faith is not as high as usual and your works aren't as high as usual and your personality and your giving and loving nature isn't as high as usual, the Lord knows that's not by your choice or design. It's by these people trying to strategically maneuver things to make it that way for you. And it's all in efforts to try to uproot your relationship with people and your relationship with the Lord. And because they figured out that why they're in a bottom position is because they have a dirty heart and you have a clean one. But the other thing too, the Lord is saying is that they're using man's tactics to try to dirty up your heart, to try to uncircumcise your heart. Okay, they're trying to have people treat you poorly or neglect you or abandon you or disrespect you or whatever it may be, give you a dirty look or a cold shoulder or try to get under your skin or anything. And so this can show itself in so many different ways. So if you either have experienced or are experiencing or will experience chosen one where you're getting kind of like this poor treatment, so to speak, yeah, that's the adversary on purpose trying to treat you poorly in hopes that you receiving that will cause you to go into the cave and not give as much as yourself to man or to God. And therefore you'll receive less from man and from God, and that reciprocity of that give and receive will get uprooted and tainted. all in efforts to try to bring you down and knock you off your relationship with God and with man, and beat up your faith and your works, right, as a vessel of the Lord, in efforts to try to uncircumcise your heart. But they don't realize that God views the heart from a supernatural divine lens. He doesn't view the heart from the same eyes that man has. The perspective that man has with man, that's not how God looks at his children. Okay? So you could be the coldest, meanest, terriblest person on the planet. If the Lord measures and tests your heart in the way that he sees fit and you still pass, then okay, you know what I mean? And so this is the thing, is it's not about man's perceptions of what a clean heart versus a dirty heart should look like, and a circumcised versus an uncircumcised heart. It's about how God sees it. Saul, because this is the other thing that the Lord was showing me, is that these people have uncircumcised hearts. Not in my opinion, not in your opinion, but in the Lord's opinion. He's already tested and seen that that's what they have. And a lot of these people aren't coming off to other people as cold, mean, terrible, harsh, horrible people. They're coming off to other people as very friendly, generous, caring, compassionate, respectful, selfless type of people. They're coming off that way. But deep, deep, deep down inside, they have terrible, dirty, cold, dark hearts. And then vice versa, God's kids have clean, pure, tested hearts. But sometimes, because of things like what the adversary does, you can come off to people as not maybe the warmest or most generous or happiest or joyful at the time. It doesn't mean that you're not. It's because you're having them put something upon you. It's not your own choice to do that, right? They're choosing to be two-faced and have two sides to them. The side they present to man and to God, and the side that they really are deep down to themselves, right? But with you, really deep down to yourself, you genuinely, truly are a good person with a good heart, and you're truly a child of God. You're truly a David, right? So basically you have David and Saul. Saul's trying to make David look and act like Saul, but at the end of the day, even if David looks and acts like Saul, David is still David. And then meanwhile, Saul is Saul, who we know has the bad heart, but Saul will come off to other people like he's like David. And this is exactly why we have to rely on the Lord to test us, is because man will fall every time. You're a David chosen one, but if you're coming off like a Saul, man will chalk you up as a Saul. They'll say, oh, they're not David, they're a Saul. They were coming off cold to me. But in reality, you're actually truly a David. And the Lord knows that. You can't fool the Lord, right? And then these people are actually the Sauls, but they tried to borrow off David and come off to man and to God like they're a David, but God knows that's just a front and a mask, and that they're really, truly, genuinely Sauls. And so this is why you can fool man, but you can't fool the Lord, because they're trying to make you're a David, they're trying to make people see you as Saul and make you act like Saul. So people look at you as Saul and you show yourself off as Saul, but you're truly, genuinely a David. You know it, the Lord knows it, and these people know it. Then meanwhile with them, they're actually the Saul, but they're trying to come off to others so they're seen as the David. You see, they're trying to show themselves off as a David and show you off as a Saul, but it's the other way around. And they're trying to make you believe that you have a bad heart like Saul. You don't. You're a David with a good heart, and you're in covenant with the Lord. It doesn't matter how strong or low your faith can get and your works, okay? And it's just a phase. It's temporary. And the Lord is aware of everything. He sees all. And he knows that you don't have a bad heart. You have a good heart. And he doesn't go by the same standard testing that man does. He uses a different spiritual, supernatural testing, the very same lens that I was talking about that you have, chosen one, child of God, from being close to the Lord. That's the same lens that he uses. They don't understand this because they don't have that lens. This is one part of the covenant that you have with the Lord, is that The Lord has spiritual eyes and a spiritual lens. He sees things spiritually. You see things worldly, yes, because you're still human in the world, but you also have this spiritual lens on you as well that the Lord has. So that's something you and the Lord share in common that you didn't have back in the day when you were in the world like these adversaries are. But you have that now as being a true, bona fide, genuine, authentic child of God. And so these people are only seeing things from the one skewed lens. They can't see it from the bigger picture like you and the Lord can, because they're missing that piece. And this is a piece that the Lord wants to give them and could give them if they chose to elevate and go up like you have, and choose to see you as the good role model, the good blueprint that you are, right? But instead, what they're trying to do is bring you down so that you can be more like them instead of them being more like you. But that's not going to happen because you have this spiritual understanding, and the Lord isn't going to see you as skewed or altered or any other way that they're trying to make you look like, because he is the king of the supernatural understanding. He's the one that gave it to you. So you and the Lord are playing with a full deck, and they're playing with a half. And they think that they're going to win. And the only reason why they've ever seen a success in the past is because the Lord was gracious to give them a good hand out of that limited deck. So you had a full deck with a bad hand, they had a limited deck with a good hand. And so whether it's them doing stuff on their own or receiving a gracious touch from the Lord, it all comes back to God. And this is the thing that these people it's a concept that is lost on them. And so the takeaway from this, chosen one, if this message applies for you, okay, is continue to work with the Lord, right? Pray as much as you can. Fast when the Lord leads you to. Worship the Lord. Even if it's in little moments, just say, thank you, God. I love you, Lord. Because the Lord knows that you have a full deck and they're trying to pull out some of your main cards. You know how when you're playing, I don't know, some sort of a card game or something, and you have a deck of cards or a good hand, you see your good cards, the best of the best, the aces, the Lord is saying, hallelujah, your aces, right? Those are your best cards. They're trying to pull your aces. And there's only 4 aces in a deck. They're trying to pull your key aces out so that you have a worse hand or a worse deck. That's what they're trying to do. And your aces is like your faith and your good heart and your works with the Lord and with man, right? They're trying to pull those aces out. And the Lord is saying that it's not working. It's never worked. It's never going to work. And even if it did work, it would be because he authorized and allowed it for some reason, just like how in the past he's allowed them to have success was because he allowed it, not them. But they don't see things from this way because they only have this limited understanding. So if you've already experienced this, chosen one, you're not out to lunch crazy, right? This is what they're doing. So if you've been receiving bad energy, so to speak, from other people, from man, check who the person is, and I guarantee you most likely they're far from God. And if they're far from God, then they probably have an uncircumcised heart. And they're basically like a Goliath or a Saul that's trying to pursue you as the David. And they're going to come off to other man and to God as if they're this David, this good person with this good heart. And the Lord's like, no. I've already tested it. I've already seen it. It's not it. And so it doesn't matter how much faith they try to muster up or how much works they try to do. They're trying to make themselves look amplified and you look less. Okay? They're trying to maximize themselves and minimize you in the eyes of man and in the eyes of God. And God is saying, no, you're going to have to do better than that. That's not how I test hearts. I don't test hearts by how mean this person was today or how, how little they spoke to you or the fact that they didn't hug you today. You know what I mean? I don't test people on that. The Lord tests our hearts in a supernatural way. And yeah, it's measured by a different measuring rod than what these people can think, believe, or imagine. And you can understand that, chosen one, because you have spiritual eyes and they don't, right? The Lord is also saying that he's aware it's not you willingly. It's what these people are doing that are trying to make you have lackluster faith and works, okay? And that to maybe if you're in the cave, like the Lord has sent you there, like he did with David when David was fleeing from Saul, that he's aware that you're in a cave. And so what you can do in a cave is stunted, it's limited, right? And so just ride it out and just do what you can. I mean, even in the cave, David could still pray, right? So just do what you can, when you can, where you can, how you can, type of a thing, right? And ask the Lord for grace and mercy, right? And the Lord will give it to you. He already is. These people think, like, say you were 2 steps away from the Lord and these people came along, they want to have you 200 feet from the Lord. You're still 2 steps away from the Lord. They have not moved you right or left or one way or the other. But this is what they're trying to do. And so this whole summer they've been trying to uproot your relationship with, in various ways, but specifically in particular with the Lord. Because they're thinking that if they can get the Lord's grace and favor and hand off you as the David, that then you're left with nothing. All of your protection's gone. All of your favor's gone. All of your anointing is gone. All they've got to do is just get you and the Lord separated, and that's that for you. But like I explained in the analogy earlier, even if a man and wife or a man and woman, their husband and wife are married and they're in love, even if they separate, because man goes out of town from business or woman does, they're not all of a sudden not married, right? They're all of a sudden not in a covenant, even though they could be a million miles away from each other. You know what I'm saying? And when you're in that position, it's more difficult to be close with your partner, yes, but you can still call them, right? When you have a chance, you can still send them an email. You can still send them, a voicemail. You know what I'm saying? And so even though you can't physically be in close contact with this person like you normally would because of the current circumstances, it still doesn't prevent you from giving a shout out across the way. It's the same thing. None of what these people are doing has done anything. It hasn't uprooted or ruined or destroyed anything. Even if there is a distance, as it seems to them, between you and the Lord, it's temporary. It's only due to the certain circumstances, not by choice. When that husband or man left, husband or wife left their partner, they didn't do it by choice. They weren't like, I'm leaving you. They left because of circumstances that came up out of their hands. Exterior circumstances from somewhere else, right? An interference somewhere, a disturbance that got them to leave. Or not leave, but be separated. You know what I'm trying to say? And so this is the same theory. It's like, that would be the same here, is that say that there's a husband and wife and they're married, and a death in the family on either side causes the husband or wife to have to fly across country to go be with family for a month. Well, what does that mean? That, suddenly you're not married, you don't love your spouse, you all can't hug every day and be physical in contact every day, then there must not be a covenant or relationship any longer. Well, no, of course there is. It's just temporary, and it's not due to a personal choice. It's due to extenuating circumstances that cause this, but it's not forever, and I can still reach out and be close to my partner through things like text messages, voicemails, emails, phone calls. There's other methods, right? Even if it's not the full gamut, there's still ways around it, right? It's the exact same idea. They think that because they're trying to cause this distance and separation between you and God, first and foremost, but also you and others, that this is going to cause you to start to go down and get cold-hearted, and then they can have an upper hand over you. You all can be on equal playing fields, that then you can leave the Lord behind. The Lord will he'll turn his back on you because how dare you? This is what they're thinking. But again, we give them grace because we know it's coming from a limited lens. They only see things from one side of the picture. They don't see it from both sides because they, unlike you, haven't followed your lead and gotten close to the Lord so that they could have the two lenses that you have. And so the way that they see the Lord is wrong, the way that they see you is wrong, the way that they think that you're going to see the Lord is wrong, the way that they think the Lord is going to see you is wrong, the way that they think that people are, that you're going to see people is wrong. The only thing they could maybe control is how people view you. But the only reason why they can do that is because the people that they're using are adversaries on the same devil's team like they are. They're their teammates. And, you know, even when Saul was doing what he was doing and David's back was against the wall at one point in time, God just sent David to a cave. He didn't destroy David. He didn't remove David from his grace. He didn't do anything other than just send David to a cave temporarily, right? Which maybe put some distance between him and God and him and man. But even in the cave, he could still pray for people. He could pray for man and he could pray to God. And so that's the thing, is that even if this is happening for you, chosen one, then there's a lot of tips in this video as to how to maneuver around this. But the Lord is with you and he's maneuvering you around it anyways, just like he's maneuvered you around this stuff in the past. He has been maneuvering you around these things all summer, because this is what they've been trying to do all summer. Is they know that at the beginning of summer, at the end of June, when I talked about in the past message about graduating, that you graduated and elevated and were promoted. They know that. And so what they've been doing since all July, all August, and now going into September is trying to find a way to uproot you, to bring you from that higher level back down, to put you on a level playing field with them, to, instead of them becoming more like you, for you to become more like them, and all this stuff. But they're coming at it from beginning, middle, and end with they're only playing with one hand, right? They're missing. You have two hands, they have one. And they think that they're going to somehow be able to make things go in a certain direction with you and with man and with the Lord, when they're literally trying to play a game with you with one hand and you have two. It's not going to ever happen. And if they think that they are succeeding, it's an illusion that the Lord is allowing them to see. Right? And if it was so successful and so, so perfect, it's just such a great game plan, then why is the Lord having me see it exactly for what it is, like revealing it to me and using me to reveal it to you, chosen one? Right? So I digress. But anyways, so continue to do what you can to stay close to the Lord. And the Lord is in covenant with you. They have not uprooted that, even if they want to or think they have not. The Lord is it. Y'all's covenant and relationship goes deeper than just these everyday things, and they're gonna have to do better than that. And they don't realize that prayer goes wherever you go. You could be in a jail cell and still pray. That's what happened to Paul and Silas. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter where you go. You could be in a cave like David, you can pray. You can be in a jail cell like Paul and Silas and pray. You can be in the prison like Joseph and pray. You know what I'm saying? Prayer goes where you go. Even if you don't have a Bible with you. Even if you don't have a church with you. Even if you don't have someone praying over you, like an intercessor. You can pray for yourself. You could be lost in the woods for days and still pray to the Lord. And so this is the thing, is that you can't really uproot a child of God from their father. Because at the end of the day, the bare minimum, they're able to pray to their father, right? And so that's what you've been doing, chosen one. The Lord wants you to continue to do that. And he's saying, don't worry about it. This is what they're doing. This is what they have been doing. It hasn't changed anything. Your heart is still clean and circumcised. Their heart is still dirty and uncircumcised. And the Lord would prefer for them to follow your lead to Christ so that their heart could potentially become clean and circumcised like yours. And then if that happens, they too can have a covenant with the Lord naturally, organically. And then they too can receive the spiritual vision that you have and see life from the both dual lenses like you do. And then they won't have to resort to all these little sneaky, weird, behind the back room, back story, back door, whatever you want to say, little tactics, right? And they would also be a much happier person. They wouldn't have to pretend that they're happy on the outside. They actually would be on the inside. And then they wouldn't have to try to make you them and you make them you and you them. You could be a David and they could be a David. Instead of trying to make you look like a Saul and them look like a David, right? Instead of this swapping and switching all the time. But they refuse to do that. And so as long as they refuse to do it, they're never going to have the upper hand over the child of God. And yeah, the Lord just keeps saying, you're going to have to do better than that. You're going to have to do better than that. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this message up now. So yeah, this may bring some revelation and or confirmation, and this may resonate for some of you at this time, chosen one. Either it's already it's been happening already for you, or it may start happening, right? Because these messages are always wherever they can find you in time, right? You could listen to this message today and it may not apply to you, and this may apply to you next September, you know. So these messages don't always pertain to this very moment in time. But yeah, this message will, if it's for some of you, it'll be a revelation, and you'll be like, oh, okay, and now you know what to expect. And for others of you, you've been going through this, and this is a confirmation to you that you're not imagining things. This is what they're doing, okay? And that you're being led by the Lord. So whether on Monday you're nice and on Tuesday you're indifferent, you're led by the Lord on both days, right? Just like some days David was cutting a scrap of Saul's garment to show Saul, hey, this is how close I came to you that I could have took you out. And then other days David was in a cave fleeing, right? Like two contradictions, right? And so that's the thing, is like some days you're going to be joyful and happy because that is the joy of the Lord, but that joy of the Lord is with you, within you and with you at all times, even if 2 weeks later you're maybe not your normal chipper self. You know, maybe on Monday you have all the faith in the world, and then by Friday it's not as much. It's not you. It's these extenuating circumstances, these interferences, these uprooting that these outside forces are trying to do, okay? And try to disturb and disrupt yours and the Lord's covenant, right? No different than how they do in the real world with marriages, right? There's things that are constantly trying to penetrate and uproot somebody's marriage in the world. And they're trying to do the very same type of things in regards to your and the Lord's marriage, okay? But they have to work a little better than that, have to come a little stronger than that, because the gates and the barriers surrounding yours and the Lord's covenant are much, much more stronger than that is. So, and it goes beyond just faith and works, okay? So anyways, I will leave this message here. I know this will find the right ones in its right and perfect timing. And yeah, I hope it finds you well. Take care, and God bless.